Australia's surge in cocaine use is being fuelled by highly sophisticated importations by one of the most brutal and powerful syndicates involved in Mexico's drug war, the Sinaloa cartel. Intelligence sources have told the ABC 7:30 report that around half the cocaine now entering these shores is coming from Mexico, and that the cartel, driven by Mexico's most wanted man, El Chapo Guzman, has established a franchise here. This report from Tim Palmer contains images some viewers may find disturbing.
Murder in Mexico is not just cheap and appallingly prolific, it's gruesomely public. As well as cutting down the bodies strung under bridges like this one in Mexico City, the country's police have just in the past few weeks had to deal with the slaughter of 72 migrants in a single massacre at a remote ranch. The two officials appointed to investigate that massacre were kidnapped and killed. Since 2007, it's estimated more than 28,000 people have been killed in Mexico's drug war. But the product at the heart of the conflict still runs freely, and now more and more of it is finding its way to Australia.
Of the number of importations that we have had, we have found a very significant increase in the embarkation points of those, and Mexico is top of the list.
In fact, the 7:30 report has been told by senior intelligence sources in Australia that around half of the cocaine coming into the country is now coming from Mexico. The raw amounts are tiny compared to the amounts shipped by Mexican syndicates into the United States. But what arrives in Australia is uniquely profitable.
If we have a kilogram of wholesale cocaine in Colombia, it's worth about $2,100. If that cocaine is successfully imported into Mexico, it's worth $12,500. If that same kilo of cocaine finds its way successfully to the US, it's worth $28,500. But if it finds its way to Australia, it's worth $146,000. And that's an increase of nearly 7,000% profit.
Whether the relatively recent targeting of Australia has led to increased use or the other way around, there's no doubt amongst criminologists that cocaine is booming here.
If you look, for example, at arrests for cocaine use and possession, they've gone up about 36% per annum over the last 5 years. It's the same story if you look at the national surveys of drug use, big increase in cocaine consumption. We're at record levels as far as the drug's concerned.
In times gone by, people associated cocaine use with the higher socioeconomic members of our community, but in fact that now appears to be changing, and lower socioeconomic individuals are not only snorting cocaine but injecting it with heroin.
Where police have uncovered drug shipments originating from Mexico, the methods are increasingly sophisticated. In July, a 240 kilogram shipment of cocaine was intercepted.
Concrete pavers that had been hollowed out and then a thinner layer of concrete glued to the top of that paver. Those pavers were then concealed within a larger consignment of pavers, and the instructions on how to find the exact pavers were actually etched into the pallets that they were concealed in.
Another Mexican shipment came in 6 steel die casts weighing 4 tonnes.
I can say to you that activity of the sophistication and level we're seeing can't be done other than by organised criminality.
You don't get importations of this size by minor groups.
In fact, a senior intelligence source has told the 7:30 report that one of the largest and most vicious Mexican syndicates has established a franchise in Australia. That source names the Sinaloa cartel, meaning that Australia has been targeted by the most notorious Mexican drug lord of all, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Already named as one of the 1,000 richest people in the world, Forbes magazine went further last year to name Guzman at number 41 in its list of the world's most powerful, ahead of Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, Oprah Winfrey and Apple's Steve Jobs. Born into poverty, Guzman bribed his way out of jail in 2001, avoiding extradition to the United States, to now command a personal fortune of more than $1 billion. He's Mexico's most wanted, and the US State Department has a $5 million bounty on his capture. This is the man Australian authorities now believe has targeted his drug shipment business at Australia and sent operatives to work here. Intelligence given to the ABC says stamps on cocaine blocks intended for Australia identify the Sinaloa cartel and that the syndicate has essentially set up a base here. While the Australian Crime Commission won't name any particular syndicate, the scale of the cocaine trade directed here has prompted the use of new laws to combat it.
The board of the Australian Crime Commission at its June meeting approved the use of the powerful Crime Commission's coercive powers to further investigate and gather intelligence around cocaine and the cartels and organised crime groups behind its importation.
Until the head's taken off, it's never over. These people will come back at us. As I said, the profit margins are too great not to. And until we take the head of this group out, well, they'll just keep coming.
But if the head belongs to El Chapo Guzman, that's a challenge that has so far eluded the US and Mexico in a war that's never looked so hard to win.
Tim Palmer with that report.